Were there discussions of executive decisions being made by the president?
Can you say more?
Was there discussion of the process of making an executive decision, such as issuing an executive order or a pardon or clemency decisions?
I think there were many meetings like that, but there were many meetings that I was not part of. Obviously, as White House press secretary, I'm not in every meeting. But usually those morning meetings were more, I would say, like a check-in meeting on the day and how to move forward.
And did these meetings ever include discussions of President Biden's health?
I think as far as I was involved, it was more of what was being asked by the press and what was the press inquiry, and it was in that form.
So if the press had questions about President Biden's health, then it would have come up at that meeting?
Not necessarily, but that would be, if you're asking me how it would come up because of the press perspective.
Do you recall that happening?
If it did, very infrequently.
Do you recall a specific instance?
No, because it didn't take over in those meetings at all.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Meaning like the health, what press was asking about as it related to his health didn't overtake those meetings. You have to remember, one of the questions that I got frequently from press was health questions and age questions. So that was something that we had to deal with for a good portion of his first term or his term.
So any discussions of President Biden's health at these morning meetings, they were only in the context of press inquiries, never anything different than that? I do not recall having a specific meeting on his health, no. Maybe, to be clear, maybe not a meeting that's all about his health, but did his health come up at these meetings in any context?
Not that I recall.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so continuing the Karine Jean-Pierre interview right here. Like, a lot of people, they watched the first one of these that I put out, and a lot of people liked it. So I figured I'd do a deep dive in on this thing just to see what's going on, and I found a very, very juicy part. We've already went through her lying to these people, and we went through just rambling nonsense, if you will, and now we get to the part where they're actually discussing Biden's health and what were the discussions around Biden's health. This is a very, very fascinating segment of this deposition, if you want to call it that. I guess that's what it is. But, like they were having meetings and it never came up. You mean to tell me you've got a doddering old man who is clearly going senile, and the press keep asking questions about his mental faculties, and you guys just never discuss it? Oh, you're going to love these answers, y'all. This is great. Just wait to see what comes. Y'all smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And click that join button. You know you want to, but do that for me. And without any further ado, folks, here is the cognitive dissonance.
So when you were facing media inquiries regarding the president's health, when would you raise those in a normal situation?
So I think in these meetings, I'm the White House press secretary. So if I get asked, hey, what's the press talking about? What's going to be the focus in your press briefing? That's how it would come up. So I would say, this is what the press is covering. This is the topics that they're into. That's how it would come up.
And to get answers to those questions from the press, would you raise them exclusively in that meeting, or would it be in other settings as well?
It was just as I said, this was a check-in. These meetings were primarily check-in, so it was my role is to engage with the press, and so that's how it would come up.
And if one of those questions came up and it didn't feel natural, circumstances arise in which you're not bringing it up in that meeting, who would you go to get answers to that question?
And just want to step back for a second and be very clear. If there was a shooting, for example, and people were having inquiries, press was having inquiries, did he speak to the mayor? Did he speak to the governor? It was just in that same vein. I would be asked, okay, what's going on what's the incoming that you're getting? What's going on in the press? I would bring that up. So that's what I'm talking about, like what press had on their mind. As it relates to my press briefings and how I would take on any incoming questions, the Q&A, if you will, the talking points that came out would come from the comms team, senior advisors, and my press team.
So I don't think that was helpful. I don't think it entirely answers my question. Just if you had a question that you were trying to get an answer for about the president's health, who would you go to?
The press team, the comms team, senior advisors, depending on the question.
Would you go to Mike Donnellan, for instance?
So just to lay out a little bit. So the press team, people have a portfolio, comms team, people have a portfolio. And so they would be the ones that would, work with the policy teams or the senior advisor on any topics that were coming up in the briefing room. And then they would come to me. And then we would talk through whatever topics that were going to be coming up in the press briefing room. And that's how it worked.
So who had the portfolio for inquiries regarding President Biden's health?
That was primarily coming from the communications team.
And who on the communications team?
I mean, we've had different people coming through, kind of being part of the communications team. So it was an array of people. It was also Anita Dunn, who was part of the senior advisors. So I don't want to pinpoint anybody because there was, depending on the timing, depending on what time during the first term or his term.
Would it ever occur to you to go to Ms. Tomasini with a question regarding the president's health?
I did not.
How about Mr. Bernal?
About the president's health?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bernal? No.
How about Ashley Williams?
No, I don't recall doing that.
How about the first lady? Same question.
No.
Did you interact frequently with the first lady?
Not frequently, but I saw her from time to time.
And did you ever have a conversation about President Biden's health or fitness?
No.
How would Ms. Dunn tell you to handle inquiries regarding the president's health or fitness?
Basically meaning, can you be more specific?
If there were any talking points that stick out to you about what the message should be regarding the president's health or fitness?
I mean, I was pretty much on the record about the president's health and from my observation. Look, and what I said at the podium is certainly what I believed and what I saw myself, my personal observation as well, which is that he was, capable of doing the job. This is a president that had the experience to do the job, cared about the American people, and did it every day, day in and day out, and was able to have some pretty successful legislation and policies to help move this country forward. And that's how we just kept it high level. We kept it on what the president has been able to do.
Do you think that strategy, delivering that message, was effective, or do you think that there should have been other efforts taken by you or other people in the White House to push back on this story about the president's health or fitness?
Here's what I say. I would say that this is a president where the American people, reporters, whoever was following him, got to see him on a regular basis. This is someone who talked to reporters, in an informal way, taking shouted questions, inquiries from them over 670 times. So he did that pretty regularly. People got to see him multiple times a week. And that reaches a level of, hey, you guys get to see and speak to him, and he takes your question and he's out there.
Then why did this question keep coming up?
That's something for, I think, reporters to speak to. It was a question that came up. We tried to do our best to answer it. The president was out there. People got to see him. People got to hear directly from him pretty regularly. I can't speak to that. I'm not going to speak to a hypothetical that I can't even answer.
Did the frequency of this question increase as from January 20th, 2021 to the end of Joe Biden's term?
I think it was something that was a part of being in the administration. It came up. I can't speak to the frequency, but it was one of the topics that came up often.
It didn't increase after his debate with President Trump.
I mean, you all watch my press briefings, right? So that was a topic certainly after the debate. But again, that my observation has always been when it comes to this President Biden, that he was more than competent of doing the job each and every day, day in and day out. And I got to see that on a regular basis. That was my observation.
And I hear what you're saying. I'm less interested in what you have to say about whether you believe the president was capable of doing the job. My question is, did you ever see a change in the president's ability to do the job?
We started off part of your questioning about when I first met him in 2009. I think that he's aged. I've aged. Presidents age in these jobs. It is very common. Obviously, he got older. I spoke to that at the podium. He spoke to that about how he's aged. But when it comes to competency, when it comes to being able to do the job, he was more than capable of doing that. Did he age? We all do. Yes, he did.
And I understand that we all age. We're aging just sitting in this room right now, but
Every second.
every second. But
Feels like it.
My question is, did you see a change from in his competency? You brought the word competency from 2021 to 2025.
I did not see a change in his competency from 2021 to the end of his administration.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Instead of using your own brain and thinking for yourself, you go to the comms person, whoever that may be, and you get a piece of paper or whatever that is with talking points, and instead of once again going to the doctor and asking the doctor, hey, how's Biden doing, instead of thinking for yourself, maybe looking to resolve some of these questions that you're consistently getting asked, instead of doing all that, you just parrot the talking points and say, that's it, I'm done for the day. Like, are you kidding me with this? You never once thought that, hang on just for a second, this guy's going senile. These people are continually asking me about his health, and I'm continually getting this question all the time, and nothing ever rang any alarms, nothing of that sort. You never had any questions whatsoever about the competency, the health, the mental faculties of the President of the United States. That's what they're basically telling you, folks, that they did not think for themselves at all. They parroted talking points, and that was it. Instead of looking for facts, instead of looking to resolve some questions, right, with some actual honest answers, they just say, hey, what do I say in this situation? Boom. There you go. I said it in that situation. And it's fascinating, y'all. Like, you know, this whole investigation, it's going to amount to essentially nothing, but it's fascinating to get a look into the mind's eye of Karine Jean-Pierre to see exactly what she was thinking. And come to find out, folks, turns out they weren't thinking at all. They were just regurgitating just what they were being told to say, and that's it. Don't think for yourself. Don't do any of these things. And this is why the Biden administration looks so incompetent, folks. We talk about this all the time. You know, there's this debate over whether it was incompetence or if everything that Joe Biden did, his administration, was by design. And personally, I think I've found the answer to that question. I think it's a mixture of both. You have this just slather of incompetence over everything. And then a lot of this is you get these far left-wing nut jobs that Joe Biden just so happened to hire into the White House. And, they just don't care about norms in this country. And they just said, we're going to do what we want. We have the White House. So let's just act like we don't have to govern half of the country. Let's act like we don't have to govern for the American people. We're just going to do what we want. We're going to push our progressive ideas onto everybody. I mean, that's what it seems like they did, folks. Just fling the doors open to the border and say, screw it. Hey, these Americans in popular polling say that they don't want to pay for all these millions of American student debt relief, for crying out loud. The taxpayer doesn't want to pay for that according to these polls, but we don't care because we want to pay for that. So we're going to force these Americans to do this. We're going to force America to do this and that, and that's all it seemed to be. Who was the brains of that operation is what I would like to know, because clearly Joe Biden wasn't there. Clearly Joe Biden wasn't thinking. Clearly Joe Biden could not do that job. She said it herself. She didn't see any decline in his mental capabilities at all over the whole 4 years that Joe Biden was in office. So what she is basically saying there is either he didn't age at all, or he was incompetent before he came into office. It's fascinating, y'all. And this is one of the biggest scandals in American history, I believe, because if we look at everything that went on, all the violations of court orders, we look at one of the most significant spy operations on American citizens in U.S. history that we have just so recently found out about, Operation Arctic Blast or something like that. I forget, the Arctic something, where they were actually spying on 8 sitting U.S. senators, and not to mention every single conservative organization in the country. Yeah, it wasn't just the senators, by the way. I just recently found this out. They were spying on just about every conservative organization out there, including Turning Point, all of them, folks. Anything that had anything to do with Donald Trump, they were getting investigated under the Biden administration. They were getting spied on consistently under the Biden administration. These people just did not care about liberty. They didn't care about freedom of speech. Hence why we had backdoor, or the federal government had backdoor access to your social media platforms, so they could go in and tell these social media companies, hey, I don't like what this person is saying. Why don't you delete that post? Or how about, better yet, ban that person outright from being on this social media platform. Well, they didn't violate our community guidelines. We don't care. Ban them now or else. And so the companies, being forced into it essentially by the government, capitulated to their demands and actually censored you guys on a consistent basis, folks. Thousands of people were censored, and it's just truly insane what we are uncovering that the Biden administration was getting up to inside the White House, folks. And they didn't care. These people just did not think for themselves at all. And I just find that so disturbing. I don't know if you guys find that disturbing, but, we can sit back and we can laugh at a liberal, the old libtards over here, or whatever you want to call it. But, honestly, this is no laughing matter. Sure, these people didn't have a brain to think for themselves. They're just robotic machines just doing a job, take the slip of paper out of this machine and push it into this machine, and that's it. No thinking required, folks. But, somebody was behind that machine, feeding the paper into that machine. For goodness sake, somebody was telling these people what to do, what to say, how to act, where to lead your questions. Notice what she was doing in there, right? She was giving some of the same responses. She was telling the investigators what she said at the podium. Like, as if we don't know what you were saying. We fully understand what you were saying. This is all archived. We can go and look up just about any White House press secretary briefing for the last 30, 40 years, for crying out loud. We can go back to an archive and find the footage and look up any press secretary and what they said. We don't need to know what you said. We want to know what you were thinking. We want to know what these other people were saying. The fact that Joe Biden's mental decline was so apparent to everybody that even liberals were questioning their own sanity. Because we keep hearing this, oh, he's fine. This president, right? Like, how's the president's mental faculties coming along? He seems to be declining. Do you have anything to say? This president works so hard for the American people. He's out there all the time talking with reporters. Like, seriously, Donald Trump has done more interviews in a single month than Joe Biden did his whole 4 years. And what was all this Biden's first term talk? As if Joe Biden had a second term. You mean his only term? Why are you saying it in a plurality as if to infer that there's a second or third term even? Like, what was that about? I didn't get that part of why she kept referring to Biden's first term. His only term, you mean? See, these people just don't think. You know, when this whole thing first started, folks, I really thought Karine Jean-Pierre was kind of smart. And, you know, she was expertly just dodging these questions. But that's not it, folks. As a matter of fact, apparently, somebody gave her the talking points before she went into this interview so she could parrot every single one of them. Just spew out whatever. Notice how many times she had to ask, can you repeat that again, please? I didn't understand the question. Well, the question was simple. What were these people telling you to tell the American people about Joe Biden's mental health? Oh, well, he works hard. That's what he does. This president is working for the American people. Blah, 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 blah. We could probably get a better response from an AI, for goodness sakes, because at least the AI can compile news. It can compile fake news as well, but it can also compile reality and parrot that reality. This is so fascinating, y'all. Like, I'm going to keep going through this. I don't think there's going to be any more sections that are more interesting than that, but by God, this thing is, like I said, 3 hours freaking long, and we're only like an hour into it at this point. So you guys buckle up for that. I'm going to be going over this thing unless a new hearing comes up, and then we'll kind of double back and come back to this because, once again, folks, this is one of the biggest scandals in American history, and honestly, I want to be here to cover it, to be frank with you guys. I want to be here to cover it because I want to get all this and make sure I archive my opinion because my memory, I got goldfish memory, y'all, sometimes. Like, I can remember certain things, but there's other things that they just slip my mind all the time, and I don't want to forget about stuff like this because thanks, liberals, Democrats, for voting for Joe Biden in to help ruin America. Thank you. Thank you so much for ruining America. But, once again, I still think that if it would not be for Joe Biden, we would not be getting the Trump second term that we are getting right now, folks. This is the best president, the most effective president in my lifetime. This second presidency, folks. His first term was milquetoast compared to this, folks. It's ramping up and it's getting nuts out there, folks. And hopefully we can shift that lever over. We can flip the needle, if you will, going back in the other direction to get this country back on track. But I think that's all I got on this one, y'all. So you guys let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. I'm utterly flabbergasted at this point that these people just openly admit that they don't think for themselves at all. I figured they at least had some sort of thought pattern, but as we can clearly see, no. You know, the lights are on, but there's nobody at home, apparently. And that's what was going on with Joe Biden as well. So, y'all smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, because I'm sure people want to hear about what, Karine Jean-Pierre was saying. And y'all click that join button for me. I need y'all's help. I'm trying to fight back against the narrative machine. And it's not all that easy. They have these gigantic, multi-million-dollar budgets, and I'm over here going to work every day and coming home and grinding my butt off doing research, trying to find all these clips and blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of a headache, but I enjoy the headache. There you go. There you go. Y'all do all that for me. And you guys remember out there that, God has a plan for all of us. You may not see that plan. You may not know what it is, but it's there. And I can guarantee you one thing. Have faith in God and He will love you for the rest of your life. That's all I got. Y'all do all that for me. And you guys try to have a good day. Stay logical. Peace.